A married woman in Nazi-occupied France finds herself falling for a German soldier. Is it morally acceptable? What if her husband is found cheating first? Let's see how this unfolds. Bussy, Central France, Lucille Angelier wakes up in the morning and goes straight to her window. Madame Angelier, her mother-in-law, is leaving in a hurry. Finding it to be a perfect opportunity, she sits on the piano and plays a mellifluous melody. As she continues playing, she begins thinking about the event that changed her life forever. It all started with a storm in June. The days were peaceful before the German bombs had fallen. On the outskirts of Paris, for the first time, terrified people were fleeing the city in any way they could. But deep in the countryside, the war still felt far away, and she remained preoccupied with the one she was already fighting much closer to home. Suddenly her thoughts are interrupted by Madame Angelier. She asks her to get dressed, or they'll be late. Lucille asks if it is necessary to go out that day. Madame Angelier doesn't find a reason not to. She is a stern woman and likes things under her control. Even as the first refugees from Paris started to arrive, she couldn't accept the fact that France was defeated in the war. As soon as Lucille walks away from the piano, Madame Angelier locks it and keeps the keys safe with herself. 3 years ago, Lucille married Madame Angelier's son, Gaston, at her father's insistence and moved to Bussy. With Gaston away fighting, Madame Angelier felt Lucille should learn how to run his properties. So every month, they visited their tenants. They meticulously planned their visits on Sunday because Madame knew the farmers would be home. She liked to catch them out, like hunting rabbits. One needs to be quiet to let them come out before they are struck. Today was one such day. Lucille hated every minute of it. Probably that is the reason she shut the vehicle door a little too loud, against Madame's wishes to be as silent as possible. She was not as afraid when Madame gave her a grim look, as she was relieved to signal the tenants of their arrival. Once inside the tenant's home, over a cup of tea, the wife asks Madame if she has heard from her son. She replies in negative and asks if she has heard back from her son, who is also away in the war, fighting. The tenant's daughter brings the rent and gives it to Madame, who points it to Lucille. Lucille looks at the change given by the daughter and immediately knows that they are short of money. Madame asks Lucille to count, but Lucille cannot do so. She looks at the tenant's daughter, knowing precisely what is about to entail. The tenant's daughter tries to placate the situation and explain that their position has been difficult without her brothers. Madame doesn't acknowledge the tenant's daughter and speaks to Lucille about adding the money they owe her down to next month. She then turns toward the tenants and asserts that if she makes any exception, Gaston would not have a home of his own to return to. The tenants know very well there is no getting away from Madame Angelier. Lucille cannot do anything except look helplessly toward the tenant's daughter. They leave soon after. While driving back, Madame cannot stop disparaging the tenants, saying that they don't have money for the rent, but have money to get their daughter silk stockings. Lucille tries to ignore while Madame continues that it might seem harsh, but if they show any weakness to the tenants, they'll bleed them dry. She tries to reinforce Lucille by saying that when Gaston comes home, he'll be pleased to see his wife take the responsibility of a landlady. But her conversation is interrupted by Lucille when she asks Madame to stop the car. Lucille's eye caught a vehicle on a nearby road, speeding up to theirs at the intersection a little ahead. If Lucille had not panicked and shouted to stop the car, Madame could not have applied brakes on time. They avoided a collision in a matter of seconds. The other car, however, kept going without stopping. 2 more such speeding vehicles, packed with luggage, overtake them. Lucille suggests they should head back, but Madame is adamant. They have potatoes to buy and 4 more houses to visit to collect rent. She doesn't have any intentions of going back without completing the tasks. They soon stop at a farm to buy potatoes. A man with an injured leg carries a sack of potatoes. His name is Benoit. He puts it in the trunk of their car. Lucille is making the payment to that man's wife, Madeleine. She shares her concerns about the potato sack being heavy for Benoit to carry, especially when he is walking with a cane. Madeleine assures her that he can manage. Lucille makes the payment of 4 francs. She also lets her know that there are more cars on the road from Paris. Madeleine cannot help but repeat what her father used to say, that if anybody wants to see what people are truly made of, start a war. Madame honks for letting Lucille know that it is time to go. While returning, they see many people on the road with packed luggage, some on carts, some on foot. They do not get the whole picture of the intensity of the situation until they enter the main road, and find themselves stuck in a long line of people that extends till the eyes can see. Madame asks Lucille to get out of the car and see how long it goes. Lucille complies and gets stuck in the people swarming all around her. There seems to be no end. One of the people approaches her and asks if his wife can rest a little in their car, as they have walked all the way from Paris. Lucille agrees and takes them to the car. Madame also got out after hearing some noise in the distance. They see fighter jets on the horizon. They wonder if they are the French military, but soon get their answer as the plane drops a bomb on the train, blowing it into pieces. There is a collective gasp from the crowd. The planes then start flying overhead and charge toward them. Everybody starts running into the fields as they try to save themselves. Lucille and Madame run with the other people. A young girl gets separated from her mother, and her mother soon spots her and calls her name. Lucille, seeing the next bomb is going to be dropped directly above them, rushes to pull the girl and lies down to reduce the impact. The scene after the bombing is horrific. There is smoke everywhere. Lucille and Anna, the girl she saved, are fine. They get up when Anna's mom runs to her daughter and thanks Lucille for saving her. Madame Angelier is also fine and calls out to Lucille. She suggests they get off the road. Anna's mother asks Madame if she can take them to the nearest town. Madame ignores the woman's pleas. Lucille is a bit deranged from the impact and hears a constant ring in her ears. Madame spots a man trying to get into her car. She rushes towards it and shoos him away. She shouts at Lucille to get in the car, and they drive off. The war has all of Paris descend to Bussy. Lucille was surprised to see so many people around the town. Everyone who escaped had nowhere to go in this new place. They were looking for food and shelter, but the enemy had followed them here. Lucille spots a familiar face leaning out of a car window, shouting for everybody to get out of the way. It is Madame Perrin. Lucille approaches the car and introduces herself, but Perrin jostles her and asks her to get out of her way. Suddenly a plane appears. Fearing another attack, everybody lies on the ground. But the plane goes by, and thousands of pamphlets rain from the sky. It reads, "Abandoned people, trust the German soldier." Madame crushes it with resentment. Fear has engulfed everybody. Madame's getting her silverware and other valuables packed so that they can utilize them in crisis. Lucille is also packing the household things as she listens to the Prime Minister addressing the situation. She leaves only the bare essentials in Gaston's office. She knows that Madame would rather see her son's belongings burn than in the hands of one of the German soldiers. Madame Angelier counts her savings. She then hides all the money in a box and keeps it in her cupboard. A rumor spread around the town that a regiment was heading to Bussy. People of Bussy gather in the church. The fear and worry are evident on each individual's face when they look at their loved ones. The priest is preaching when everybody at church hears the marching sound coming from a distance. They realize the Germans are already here. After saying their prayer, they quickly make their way out of the church. The regiment has marching soldiers armed with guns and other artillery. They have come in jeeps and tanks. Once they reach the middle of the town, they announce that under the authority and the signature of Marshal Pétain, a new constitution of the French state is signed, guaranteeing the rights of labor, family, and the fatherland. The German soldier reminds them that the French have been defeated and they are now in charge. The French citizens have to surrender their firearms to the German headquarters by tomorrow morning. The people are scared of the soldiers and how they might be treated, so they keep their heads low and avoid making eye contact. One of the soldiers places a cigarette in his mouth and points it to a French citizen for him to light it up. Lucille is very scared and hides behind her mother-in-law Madame Angelier, who keeps a strong front. She despises the Germans and makes no effort to hide it from her face, while Lucille is almost teary-eyed. In a quivering voice, she asks Madame how long the soldiers are going to be there. Madame has no answer to this. One other soldier climbs to a watchtower and changes the time to German time. The crowd soon disperse. Madame and Lucille are in their home, sitting alert as someone knocks on their door. They have been notified that they have to host assigned German officers. Madame instructs Lucille they are neither to look at the soldiers nor to speak with them. Madame goes to the door when called, and Lucille follows but looks from behind the curtain. At their door is a German Oberleutnant, Bruno von Falk. He insists that they have been told to expect him. He gets a glimpse of Lucille standing behind the curtain. He steps forward and wishes her. He then goes back to addressing Madame Angelier, assuring her that he will try not to be an inconvenience to them. He requires a room and somewhere to work from. To Madame's horror, he goes to the wall clock and changes the time to German time, explaining he can't be late. He then makes his way inside, and another soldier follows, carrying Bruno's luggage. And with them comes an over-energetic dog. Madame is beyond shocked to see a dog in her house about which she was not intimated. Lucille doesn't react to or say anything. She still is scared and keeps her distance. At night, German soldiers drive the citizens back to their homes as they have imposed a curfew. At Madame Angelier's residence, Lucille and Madame are getting ready for supper. After saying their prayer, they are ready to eat when they hear noises from the room above. Soon after, Bruno comes to the dining table and asks for the key to the piano and the desk. He looks at Lucille again and adds that he will use them with utmost care. Madame reluctantly replies that Marthe, the house help, will give him the keys. He then leaves the women to have their supper. Madame Angelier, being her audacious self, remarks that since the German soldier has asked for the piano, he will be playing Deutschland über alles before they know it. Before bed, Lucille is combing her hair when she hears a sweet melody, and her hands stop. She listens to it intently. The next day, she takes the rifle with her to be submitted to German headquarters. There she sees Anna and her mother. She asks her if they have found a place to stay. Anna's mother replies yes and quickly leaves. She was looking at one of the posters the Germans had put to testing a particular religion. There are several other such posters. Her attention is brought to another such poster by the farmer's wife, which says that people can't go out after 9 at night and everybody has to use German money. She asks Lucille if they have any German soldiers living with them. Lucille replies they have an officer. This was bound to happen because Lucille's house is one of the best houses in town. They were talking when the tenant's daughter passed them and looked disgustingly at Lucille. Lucille has no idea why she looked at her like that when the farmer's wife tells her that Madame Angelier moved her and her parents into a barn. and put a refugee from Paris into their home and doubled the rent. Lucille didn't seem surprised at this revelation. Benoit Laberry, the farmer of the Montmort estate, has also come to surrender his rifle. Once his registration is over, he makes his way out. On his way, he meets the Viscountess, who asks him why he didn't attend church yesterday. He replies that he was working scornfully. His wife warns him to be careful of how he talks to the Viscountess, because she has been their landlady for a very long time. But he retorts, saying that they have given them nothing but grief. The Viscount offers a case of cigars to the German major as a bribe but prefers to call it a gift. He asks if he can have a moment alone with him. They send Bonnet, another German officer who is assigned to Viscount's house as his residency, out of the room. The Viscount then talks about his wife being uncomfortable at the thought of someone else living in the home with them. He asks the major if they can offer something other than their living quarters, like their Laberry farm on their estate. The town had been without their men for so long that the women would drool on the men who had recently swarmed the city. It didn't matter if they were German soldiers. However, the French mothers were not at all happy with the circumstances. Lucille is carrying big packets of groceries with her, as she witnesses women flirting with shirtless soldiers, and many soldiers catcalling her as she walks by them. Bruno sees Lucille and offers to carry the bags for her, but Lucille cannot bring herself to say anything and keeps walking. Once home, she places the bags on the table and looks at her shivering, blistered hands. Marthe takes Lucille to the cold store, where they keep the meat. Lucille is a kind soul who thinks of others too in crises like these, while the well-off continue to reap their own wheat and count their money while leaving others on their own. The others were men and women like Benoit and Madeleine, who would not afford it even if they had a chance. So Lucille had come to visit them, and she had bought some food from the stock that her mother-in-law had stashed. Madeleine has thought highly of Lucille ever since they have known each other. She sympathizes with Lucille for not having her husband around to support her. She asks Lucille if she writes to him. Lucille doesn't know where her husband is. Madeleine proposes to write anyway as it would make her feel better. Suddenly Madeleine's baby starts crying. Madeleine picks him up and starts feeding him, when a German soldier walks in and stares at her awkwardly. She tries to cover herself as Lucille holds the baby. Lucille asks if they can help him. It is Bonnet, and he has been billeted with Madeleine and Benoit. Madeleine argues that since they are too far from the village, they were not assigned anyone. Bonnet says he was surprised because he was staying at a chateau. Madeleine says there are no good rooms, but Bonnet has his eyes set on Madeleine. He has come to relish his power to disrupt Benoit and Madeleine's lives as if their lives were not difficult enough. Lucille often thought about this soldier that lived with them. Every night she would hear him play the same unfamiliar music. She was meant to resent him, yet she felt relief in his presence after months of silence. On Madeleine's advice, Lucille decides to write to Gaston. She is sitting in the garden and is not sure what to write. She crumbles the first page when suddenly Bruno's dog comes running towards her. Bruno apologizes for the dog. He tells her that the dog is not his. They found it in an abandoned village. He assures her that the dog is Frenchman. This makes Lucille's corner of the mouth quiver a bit to stop a smile. She continues writing, or at least pretending to write. Bruno takes out a cigarette, but before lighting it, he asks for her permission. Lucille doesn't say anything. She looks up from her writing pad and looks at him once before resuming writing. Taking that as a yes, he lights it up. He compliments her on the house. Refusing to take a compliment, Lucille says it is not her house but her mother-in-law's. But Bruno is not ready to give up yet. He confidently presses that the piano must be hers. Lucille wants to know the reason why he thinks so. He casually replies that Madame Angelier doesn't seem to be a music lover. Hearing this brings a huge smile to Lucille's face, and she tells him that it was a gift for her from her father. He asks her if she plays, and she replies in the affirmative but adds her inability to play music in the house, because Madame Angelier doesn't like it. It is only when her husband comes back home she is allowed to play. Bruno finds a place to sit adjacent to her and asks if he can sit there. Without waiting for her response, he sits there. Lucille is overwhelmed but maintains her composure. She gathers the courage to ask Bruno about the melody he keeps playing, as she doesn't recognize it. Bruno says she wouldn't recognize it. Lucille counters that she has studied music, but soon realizes why she won't recognize it. It is Bruno's composition. He tells her that he was a composer before the war when he first got married. Lucille is surprised to hear that he is married. He confirms it has been 4 years that he has been married and been a soldier. He never got a chance to live his married life truly. Lucille understands a wife's perspective and says she must miss him, but he denies saying not anymore. Before she could ask him anything, a tap on the window by Madame Angelier breaks their conversation. It is an indication for Lucille to come back inside. She quickly gathers her things and goes inside the house. She goes inside and calls once to see if Madame is there. Not finding her anywhere, Lucille runs upstairs into Bruno's room and enters cautiously. She walks over to the piano when she hears Bruno playing with his dog in the garden. She watches them from the window. She turns to find the composition lying on the table. She picks it up and studies every note. Suddenly the dog comes in, and she keeps the music sheet back on the table. There is no way she can make out on time now, so she just stands clumsily in a corner. Bruno soon walks in and finding her in his room, asks her what she's doing. She makes an excuse that she lost something there. But Bruno is not happy with her audacity and questions her why she entered without asking first. She apologizes, but his anger starts rising. He picks up one of the letters and asks her if she has looked at any of the letters. She denies it, but he is not satisfied. He asks her to read the letter and passes the paper to her. With shaking hands, she takes the note and starts reading. It is a note about a person who is in an illicit relationship despite being married and having children. Several other such messages are lying on the table. Lucille asks Bruno where did they come from. Bruno tells her that these are from the French people of the town. They were in the town hall when the German soldiers came. Lucille tries to conciliate, saying they are gossip or a way for the people to settle an old score. She suggests they should burn the notes, terrified of the consequences. If Bruno had his way, he would, but he is tied by the law. His major has ordered him to read them. He then asks Lucille to leave. He pulls out the music sheet, and he knows why Lucille came into his room. At the dining table, Madame is furious. She avers that Lucille married her son for the land, because her father had lost his. Lucille tries to defend herself. Her father was very ill. He wanted his daughter to get married to a good man. Madame cuts in contemptuously, alleging he wanted a rich man for Lucille. Lucille asks Madame what she did to anger Madame. Madame Angelier thinks something is going on between Lucille and the German lieutenant. Lucille tries to explain they were only having a conversation in the garden, but Madame expected her to walk away when he approached. Lucille argues she cannot be confined to her bedroom. Madame is frenzied as she bangs her fist on the table, ordering her to be a faithful wife. Lucille has done nothing wrong, yet Madame accuses her of absurdities. She manipulates Lucille into feeling guilty by reminding her of her son, who is being hunted by these Germans. Lucille gets concerned about Gaston. She asks Madame what has happened. Madame tells her they got the news that Gaston's unit is in a labor camp in Germany. She wants Lucille to see the Germans as enemies. Lucille understands, but she has a soft heart for all people. She cannot hate someone just because she is asked to do so. After dinner, she is retiring to her room when Bruno calls her. Lucille says she cannot talk to him, but Bruno hands her a box and apologizes for not believing her earlier, when she said she was looking for something in the room he is staying in. Once in her room, Lucille opens the nicely wrapped box and finds a small piece of paper with the notes of his composition. In the morning, as soon as Bruno leaves, Madame also starts to leave with Marthe for some work, and asks Lucille to collect the rent. Lucille and Bruno have developed a connection where they don't need to communicate. They have an unspoken language of their own. After everybody leaves, she searches her coat pockets where Bruno had put the key to the piano before leaving. She makes her way to Bruno's room and plays the melody he gave her last night. Bruno is still in the garden when he hears the piano. He smiles as he looks toward the house. Bonnet has been staying at the farm. One day he walks up to Benoit and asks if he can swim considering his condition. He then asks him how he got his leg crippled. Benoit had trapped his leg when he fell off his horse. Bonnet mockingly asks him if he would have fought if he was not injured. Benoit certainly would have. He makes sly remarks about him and then proceeds to make advances on Madeleine. Benoit cannot teach Bonnet a lesson for subjecting his wife to such unruly behavior in front of him, so he asks her to help him bring in the animals. Even so, Bonnet catches hold of her arm and asks her to bring a vase of flowers to put beside his bed. Lucille goes to collect rent. Céline, the tenant's daughter, behaves rudely and gives her less than the stipulated rent. Lucille doesn't say anything and moves next door. She sees Anna playing a melody on her flute. Once inside, she tells Anna that her father taught her that melody. Anna, too, was taught by her father. Lucille asks about her father, to which Anna's mother tells her how they got separated from her husband and her other daughter. Anna's mother sends Anna to play outside. She is talking with Lucille when she sees a German soldier standing near her daughter. Soon there is a knock at her door, and the soldier comes in. He asks for soap to wash. Anna's mother seems nervous. She hands him a soap bar, and he leaves. She cannot hold back her tears out of fear. She cries as Lucille holds her hand. Benoit is tying his cows when he sees Bonnet going to the lake on his bike. Benoit has a gun hidden in the shed in between the fodder stacks. He had saved one for an emergency. He follows Bonnet to the lake and sees a couple of German soldiers swimming and having fun. He makes his way without being noticed and steals their uniforms. He wishes to do more to Bonnet but controls himself. He then goes to meet Lucille. When she confronts him about his gun, he says he has submitted the registered arm, but the other he has to keep for their own safety. Marthe encourages him to tell Lucille what is going on. He then tells Lucille that Bonnet, the German in their home, is chasing after Madeleine. He is here to ask Lucille to speak to Bruno about the situation. Lucille says she doesn't talk to him, but the word has spread, and he points out that he has heard otherwise. Lucille talks to Bruno, and he comes to meet Benoit. He apologizes for his colleague's behavior, but adds that he has no influence over him as they are of equal rank. But on Lucille's request, he says he'll talk to Bonnet. When Marthe and Benoit leave, Bruno tells Lucille that their regiment can leave anytime now, and he doesn't want her to hate him. She confesses she doesn't hate him. He asks if they can have tea together or perhaps wine, but Lucille is too afraid of Madame to do anything of that sort. Bruno points out that Madame has church tonight, so she won't be home anytime soon. Lucille agrees, and they talk a great deal over a glass of wine. She asks him why he is always on his own. He finds pleasure in knowing Lucille keeps a watch on him. He then puts on some music on the record player and asks Lucille to forget everything for 2 minutes and dance with him. They share a lovely dance till Marthe comes running to notify them that Madame is on her way back. She asks them to go to the garden while she cleans up the wine glasses. In that house, Marthe is Lucille's companion and always helps her in any way she can, because she knows Lucille is kind-hearted. Once in the garden, Lucille and Bruno hide behind a bush, and he makes her laugh by saying that people should be afraid of him, but Madame can easily scare the plague away. He then thanked her for being kind and offering her companionship to him. It had been very long since he had talked to anyone like he did with Lucille. He then wishes her good night and leaves. Lucille cannot stop the growing warm feeling inside her. She stares at him through the door slit as he plays the piano. The next day, Lucille goes into the forest riding on her bike. There she sees Céline with a German soldier. She starts walking back, and Céline catches up to her and hurls rude comments at her, thinking she is going to tell everybody about what she saw. When Lucille doesn't reply, Céline tells her to ask Bruno about the letters concerning Gaston. Everybody knows it, but she. Lucille hurries back and starts rummaging through the anonymous letters in Bruno's room. She finally finds it and, after reading it, has tears of anger in her eyes. The Viscount has hosted a party for the German officials near the lake. Bruno meets Bonnet there and tries talking to him but ends up making him furious. When he returns, he finds Lucille in his room with the letter about Gaston in her hands. She asks him how long he has known. Bruno knows what she is talking about and replies that he didn't feel entitled to tell her. At that moment, Madame walks in, and Lucille confronts her about her cheating son. She is angry at her mother-in-law for not telling her about Gaston's affair, which started even before they were married. What truly broke her heart was that he fathered a child, a girl named Simone, and Lucille knew nothing about this. She then shuts the door on Madame's face. She hands the letter back to Bruno and tells him to keep his secrets to himself, before storming off from the room and locking herself in her bedroom. Bruno couldn't bear to see Lucille cry like this. Also, he feels that the letters are nothing but a source of misery. So he takes all the letters to the garden and sets them on fire. In the morning, Lucille finds the burned paper. Bruno asks her if he can play something for her on the piano. She enjoys the melody but soon is grief-struck, thinking about how she was living in an illusion of being in love. Bruno tries to console her aching heart, but she stops herself from giving in to her feelings. Madame summons her to meet Madame Perrin. Madame Perrin has come to visit her son's grave after he died in Normandy as the Germans advanced. She asks about a German living in their home. Madame Angelier refuses to have anything to do with him, but she points out that Lucille certainly has. Madame Perrin takes the opportunity to ask Lucille to get the things she had left back home, which is being utilized by the Germans now. Bruno accompanies her to Madame Perrin's house. She is horrified at the pathetic state of the house. Bruno orders them sternly to clean the mess they have created. But that doesn't diffuse the resentment it has built in Lucille. She walks out, and Bruno follows her. He assures her that he has nothing in common with the Germans she has seen. Lucille is the only person he considers who shares his common interest. He then kisses her, letting all his suppressed feelings out. Lucille gives in to hers. Lucille brought the household items Madame Perrin requested. For Lucille, it was like clawing back the crumbs she could from the enemy. Her relationship with Bruno drew attention and many opinions. Some thought of her as a collaborator. Others admired her bravery. But her true feelings boiling inside of her were kept well hidden. These feelings played into action once Bruno and Lucille returned home. Suddenly, Madame Angelier returns. Lucille suggests they spend a day together on Thursday since Madame Angelier will be visiting her sister. For the first time, she feels excited and loves the feeling. The Viscountess de Montfort lies awake in her shadow while her husband sleeps. She hears some noise from outside and goes to check it. She catches Benoit stealing chickens. He is upset at the hypocrisy of the rich. They keep filling their pockets while poor people like him starve to death. He warns her that he is not the only one who comes there. Soon many such starving people will come. Viscountess calls him a thief and asks him to get out. He forcefully takes the chickens from her and threatens her that once their German friends are gone, nobody is going to save them from what awaits them. Viscountess de Montfort tells her husband that Bayonet still has a weapon. He knows half of the town still possesses the armory, so he asks her to let it go, but she makes up a lie. She says he tried to shoot her and asks her husband to do something about it. For 3 months, Bruno lived alongside Lucille. Now there will be no holding back. She doesn't care about anybody or anything. All she cares about is Bruno and the love they have. Everybody can keep fighting and hating each other. Benoit and Madeleine are at the farm when they see a truck. Madeleine wants to know why there is a truck when Benoit is going to take the horse to the military himself. She asks what he has done, but there is no time for discussion, and she asks him to leave. She assures she'll handle everything there. The truck reaches the front of the farm, and many soldiers come out. One of the soldiers tells Madeleine they have an arrest warrant against Benoit. They ask her for his whereabouts. She tells them he is in the field. Benoit makes his way to the stable and searches for his gun, when Bonnet appears out of nowhere holding Benoit's rifle. He sneers at him because he will be put in jail. He also makes some very degenerating remarks about his wife, Madeleine. Benoit has had enough, so he attacks Bonnet, and they fight. Bonnet takes out his gun, but Benoit takes it from him. In that scuffle, the trigger is pulled, and Bonnet succumbs. The sound attracts the soldiers' attention, and they run towards the stable. Benoit takes the motorbike and runs off amidst heavy firing his way. He manages to escape. Madeleine cannot do anything. She tries to stop the soldiers, but they are too many. After this ordeal, she rushes to Lucille's. Lucille is expecting Bruno as they had decided to spend the day together, so she is surprised to see Madeleine at her door. She pleads with Lucille to help her husband as he can't move fast. She knows where he is hiding but has no way to help him. But Lucille cannot get involved, and she apologizes. Madeleine sees the dinner table set for two and understands the whole situation. She turns to Lucille and tells her that her German officer will not come, as he is the one leading the search party for Benoit. She condemns her for her actions and leaves. Lucille sits at the table for a long time, thinking she is living a fantasy, when her friends and neighbors are being hunted by the German soldiers. Her conscience doesn't allow her to give up on a friend, so she gets changed and goes into the woods. She cautiously makes her way, hiding from the soldiers and dogs. Benoit walks behind her and asks her why she is in the woods. She gets startled but is relieved that it is Benoit, not a German soldier. She hands him a change of clothes. The next day, all the citizens are summoned in the middle of the town, and an announcement is made by the Viscount about the demise of Lieutenant Bonnet. They also name the accused Benoit Laberry. The residents are required to give any information they have about the accused, or they will incur immediate execution by firing squad. The German major calls the Viscount for a meeting. Bruno joins as well. The Viscount apologizes to the major that he did not know things will escalate to this degree. The major reminds him of the law that states it is the mayor who is responsible for the actions of his constituents. He further says if the farmer is not found within 48 hours, he will face the firing squad in his place. Viscount protests, but the major tells him that his superior has ordered to round up 5 men at random. But on Major's insistence, reduce the number to Viscount only. He then takes Viscount hostage. The major appoints Bruno as the head of the execution. He is ordered to search everywhere. With the guilt of what he is about to do, Bruno orders the search to commence. The search party creates a ruckus in people's homes and workplaces. People are thrown out of their homes. Madame Angelier returns and sees Lucille taking food and wine on a tray. She assumes it is for the lieutenant, but Lucille shows her who is the food for. She takes her to the meat storage and shows where Benoit's been hiding. Madame helps him hide in a secret chamber that her grandfather had built. She asks her to not make any sound. The soldiers are here. Every corner of the city is being thoroughly searched. Anna's mother is taken into custody as they found out she is a Jew. Bruno senses something off as Lucille maintains distance from him. He asks if her feelings have changed and she replies yes. But Bruno is not ready to believe it. The Viscountess goes to meet the Viscount. While she travels through the town, everyone stares at her with contempt. Even after 48 hours, Benoit was not found. The Viscount is soon. Bruno is a composer at heart, one who understands the emotions behind every note. Just because his forefathers were in the army, he had to walk in their footsteps. If given a choice, he would have never chosen this path. The disgust this profession brings is constantly evident on his face. It is probably why he remains alone most of the time. At Madame Angelier's house, Benoit is planning to join a rebellion group in Paris. Lucille offers to take him. She goes to meet Bruno to ask for a travel pass. She makes an excuse that one of her tenant's daughters is very ill and needs medicine, so she is traveling to Paris to get it for her. He issues her a pass. As she turns to leave, he holds her hands and promises they will meet again. But he will not be a soldier. She asks him to be careful because his life is very precious to her. She then leaves. A soldier hands Bruno the movement orders. The Germans will be leaving the next day. He has tears in his eyes because he knows this might probably be their last meeting. The next day, Lucille goes into Bruno's room and finds the symphony he has composed. He had left it for her. She gets emotional as she imagines Bruno playing every note. She then gets ready to leave. Madame Angelier gives Lucille everything she needs, and then hands her a small pistol for her protection. Benoit comes out wearing Gaston's clothes. He thanks Madame Angelier for her help. She is reminded of her son and she cannot help but hug him. After they leave, Madame Angelier goes to the secret room and gives Anna a cookie. Bruno and the others are getting ready to leave. One of the soldiers comes to inform Bruno that the tobacco he smelt at their house was different from what Bruno used. They are suspicious Lucille and her family is hiding something. So he put a note to search her car on the travel pass issued to her. Bruno gets anxious, anticipating the worst. Lucille reaches the checkpoint and hands her travel papers when asked. Reading the note, the soldier asks her to step out of the car. She is then asked to open the trunk. As soon as she opens the trunk, a firing spree breaks. Benoit is injured in the process. She runs to help him when she sees a bike approaching them. She points her weapon towards the approaching German personnel, but soon recognizes who it is. Lucille shakes as she keeps her weapon pointed at Bruno. Bruno knows that Lucille will not hurt him. He looks around and assesses the situation and then walks toward her. He helps Benoit get up and takes him to Lucille's vehicle. Lucille shakes violently as the intensity of the recent event dawns on her. She does not let her heart get its way and maintains distance. Bruno looks at her hopefully, but she can only look at him with teary eyes. She doesn't say a word and drives off. Her heart cannot take it anymore. She finally thought she had found her true love, only to be separated by fate. She never confessed her feelings, but both understood what they shared. Later she learns that Bruno perished during the war, or maybe he disappeared like her. Lucille drove Benoit to a farmhouse, and a week later they made it to Paris. They joined the French resistance and helped drive out the Germans. And 4 years later their efforts paid off and France was free. Over time Lucille tried to forget the people she lost, but the music always took her back to Bruno. She treasured his memory and his symphony suite Francaise.